Dear students, I hope all of you are doing fine and all of you are healthy. Now, we are going to start from your biology subject, chapter 4, the circulatory system, rather the human circulatory system, that is transport in humans. Okay, so let's begin. The circulatory system is a very important transport system in human being. Now, the human beings have a closed type of circulatory system. What does this mean? It means that in human being, the blood travels through the blood vessels and they never come out of the blood vessels. But in certain animals, like for example, insects, you will be able to see that they have an open type of circulatory system, wherein you will see that the blood from the blood vessels comes out into tissue spaces. But in human beings, what is the type? It is closed type. Okay, because it forms a closed circuit. The blood travels from the heart into the blood vessels, then back to heart. There is no other areas where it basically can come out into a space. Now, what are the basic functions of the transport system in the city? Now, you would be very well aware about this particular thing right now, isn't it? The situation right now is of a kind that your complete transport system has been shut down. So things or commodities cannot reach your house, right? There's a very big problem. Besides this, you also have problem of even throwing out or disposing wastes from your house, which has got accumulated for a long time. So you understand, for a city, if there is a lockdown and there is no transportation occurring, then there is a complete collapse of the city life, or might be any particular area, right? Now, if you look into the basic functions of the circulatory system, it's almost like the transport system of your body. So let's look into that. Is it only the transport, or does it have something beyond that? So the circulatory system transports different substances, and we know some of them are oxygen, nutrients like your glucose, amino acids, etc., and other substances like hormones, vitamins, okay, from your digestive system into the circulatory system and then throughout the body, and removes the waste from the different cells and the tissues of your body, right? So these are some important functions of your circulatory system. Now, let's see how many different types do we have in our body. That is, how many types of circulatory system do we have? We have, in fact, two types of circulatory system. Okay, the first type is commonly referred to as the blood circulatory system. Okay, the first type is commonly referred to as the blood circulatory system. So the first type is basically called as the blood circulatory system, right? And the second type is called as the lymphatic circulatory system. So the name itself speaks. What is moving in it? Blood. Now, what is blood? We will discuss. So what is your blood circulatory system made of? Three basic units or three important components. First one, blood. The second is your blood vessel, which carries the blood, and a pumping organ that is called as your heart, right? That is called as your heart, right? Now, you can see the heart, right? Now, beside this, we have one else. Who is this? The lymphatic circulatory system. Yeah, in lower classes, we might not have heard about it, but yes, we are going to, from the lymphatic system here. So we are going to gather some informations about the lymphatic system here. Now, what is this lymphatic system made of? It is made of lymph vessels, it is made of lymph nodes, and it is made of lymph, which keeps on flowing through it, right? So let's begin first one by one. Let's discuss first about the blood circulatory system, then we move on to the lymphatic circulatory system. Now, let's talk about the blood circulatory system. What is the first component? The blood. So here is a test tube. You can see a person is holding some blood. Yes, these are real blood. Now, what you can see is the blood. What exactly is it made of? What is the composition of blood? We need to know. So let's look into that. Now, if you look into the blood and if you take a particular test tube, okay, and keep the blood for some time, you will see there are two phases which are being formed here, or in fact two layers in which the blood basically gets distributed, right? Now, you will see a straw yellow color liquid, right? And that is called as your plasma. Okay, this is the liquid portion of the blood. Now you have a cell fraction, or in fact you can also call this as solid fraction of the blood, and this solid fraction are the blood cells. They are basically formed by the blood cells. So there are two components, plasma, and what is the second component? The blood cells. Okay, now if you look into the plasma, what does this plasma consist of? What is present in the plasma? We want to know. And how many different types of blood cells are present? That also we need to know. So let's go to find out what is the plasma made of. So remember, we have seen in our last slide that the plasma is a straw yellow liquid, and maximum portion, roughly, if say this is roughly 10 ml of blood, then you'll find 5.5 ml of it is the plasma. That means 55% of your blood is your plasma. Whereas the cell or the solid fraction is basically making how much? Roughly 4.5. Roughly how much? 4.5. That is 45% of the total blood, right? Now, if you look into what makes your plasma, you'll find 90% of the plasma is basically made of water. What I say? Let me repeat. You can see 90% of the plasma is basically made of water. And this pie chart also shows a red area where you can see 10% soluble substances are present. You understand what is soluble substances? Substances which we cannot see, but they are present. Got it? So these 10% soluble substances which are present, who are they? What are they? We need to know. Let's move on to see them. Now, the plasma soluble part, that is the 10% that just now I told you, consists of first plasma proteins. There are remarkably many different proteins you find, but I'm going to name only three over here: albumin, globulin, fibrinogen. They all have specific functions to be played in the blood. So the plasma protein basically is of three different types. Okay, and this is the first thing, in fact the major portion of the soluble part present in the plasma. Beside this, you will find different nutrients which are dissolved in the plasma. Remember, glucose, amino acid, all these things are actually present in the plasma part, not inside the cell. In fact, they are basically transported by the plasma. Don't forget the wastes. They are also found in the plasma. Okay, different respiratory gases, especially if you talk about carbon dioxide, it remains dissolved in the water in the form of carbonic acid, or in fact bicarbonate ions. So these respiratory gases, they also are transported by your plasma. So what are the different things which are present in the soluble part of your plasma? Can you just tell me once? Yeah, plasma proteins, 3 types: albumin, globulin, fibrinogen. Beside this, different nutrients are present. Beside this, different wastes are being found, like you have the urea, in fact some amount of uric acid, even creatinine. These are nitrogenous waste substances which you can find. Respiratory gases, oxygen very little, but carbon dioxide predominantly through the plasma. Okay, now beside this you will also find hormones. Now hormones are secretions which are produced from certain endocrine glands in human body. Okay, we will study about them and we will see. So hormones are chemical messengers. They are also being transported by our plasma, right? And in fact, they are all found in the soluble state right in the plasma. Now, if you talk about the blood cells, the second part, remember the second part is basically what? The second part is the blood cells, isn't it? Actually, this should be here. Excuse me for this. This should be here. This should have been here. So the blood cells, in fact, okay, are this. Now we want to see what are the different types of blood cells that you can see under the microscope. In fact, under electron microscope. Yeah, to certain extent in compound microscopes or under compound microscopes that you have in your school lab, okay, you can see them. But to visualize them in this form, you need an electron microscope. So let's see what are the different types of blood cells that you have. Yeah, the first and the foremost is 3 different types of blood cells are found. Okay, the first is your red blood cells, which makes your blood red in color. Okay, the second are the white blood cells. Okay, they're much bigger in size. Although we call them white blood cells, they are not white in color. In fact, they are colorless. Then we have fragments of cells which are called as platelets. Okay, they are basically broken fragments of a very big cell. Now, how many categories of cells do we have? 3. What are those? Red blood cells. Although we call them as red blood cell, in fact, they are not cells, they are corpuscles. We will see that. Why are we going to call them as corpuscle, and what is the difference in between a cell and a corpuscle? Now, platelets, and we have white blood cells. Now, let's compare them. Let's see how do they differ from each other. Very quickly, let's see them. Now, the first, you will see that red blood cells, they have a biconcave shape. On both the side, you will find concave nature. White blood cells, if you look into them, they are basically irregular and they do not have any fixed shape. And if you look into platelets, they are small and irregular. Okay. If you talk about the nucleus, there is no nucleus inside red blood cell. Now, a cell without nucleus, a cell without mitochondria, endoplasmic reticulum, these are organelles of the cell, right? Now, these organelles, if they are absent inside the cell, such a cell is called as corpuscle, right? Now, red blood corpuscle is more correct than red blood cells. Moving on to the next one, WBCs or white blood cells, they have a very large nucleus. Platelets, they also do not have nucleus. Now, what are their colors? Red blood cells, their color is, yes, tell me, what is their color? Their color is red. Why are they red in color? Because they contain a pigment which is red. What is the name of the pigment? Hemoglobin. Now, what is their color? That is WBCs, they are white blood cells, they are basically colorless. Okay, and what about the color of platelets? They are also colorless. Okay, so please remember, your blood is red due to this particular category of cells, that is red blood cells. Now, let's look into their size. Let's compare their size. They are roughly, in terms of diameter, if you compare them, roughly having a diameter which is 7 to 8 micron. Okay, in terms of diameter, you understand, right? This is a circular structure, and what is the diameter of a circle? You know that 7 to 8 micron. So they are quite small. If you compare them with them, that is the white blood cells, they actually have different sizes. Like if you look into some phagocytes, what are these? We will discuss. They are comparatively very large, approximately 10 to 29 micron. Just see, 7 to 8 micron, 10 to 29 micron. If you talk about the lymphocyte, they are comparatively so small and they have a diameter 6 to 10 micron. Now, if you move on to the next one, platelets, they are bigger. I mean, in fact, smaller than red blood cells. They are smaller than red blood cells, and they have a, uh, you know, a diameter which is 1 to 4 micron, right? Now, if you take 1 ml of blood, you understand 1 ml of blood, right? So if you take 1 ml of blood, roughly how many RBCs are you going to find? Okay. How many WBCs are you going to find, and how many platelets are you going to find? This is what we need to see. So we will very quickly see about them. So red blood cells, roughly we are going to get 5.4 million of them. Million just in 1 ml. If you compare this with WBCs, they are in thousands, roughly close to 7 to 8,000. Okay. And if you look into the platelets, they are in lakhs. So easy way of remembering. Red blood cells are 5 to 4 millions in number per ml of blood. Per ml, I am repeatedly telling you. Okay. White blood cells 7 to 8,000, and blood platelets are roughly close to 2.5 lakh. Okay. To 4 lakhs. Now, let's see their basic functions. What are their basic functions? So if you look into their basic functions, the main function of red blood cell is to carry gases, and the most important gas which it transports or carry is your oxygen. Using which pigment? You have studied hemoglobin, right? What about the WBCs? What function do they perform? They kill all the germs which enters in your body, including they are also capable of fighting with one of the deadliest virus that you know today, that is coronavirus, right? Now, what about them? Platelets. Blood platelets, they are also very, very important for you. How? Because if you have bleeding, say if you have a cut in your body anywhere, then what is going to happen is you are going to start bleeding from that area. Now, you might have seen within some time, or in fact within few minutes, your bleeding stops. And your liquid blood basically gets converted into a gel-like structure. And the conversion of this is what we call as blood clotting. So for this blood clotting, they are important. Without them, you will not be able to clot your blood. Now, let's talk about where they are made in our body. Red blood cells, they are made in your bone marrow. Okay, bone marrow is a place which is located inside long bones. White blood cells, they are also made in your bone marrow, including your spleen. Blood platelets, they are made in your bone marrow. Let's look into their lifespan. That means for how many days do they live? This RBCs, they live for 120 days. WBCs lives for a few days. Blood platelets lives for a few days. Now, this varies. Actually, WBCs, some of the WBCs can live for roughly 7 days to 14 days. And some of the blood platelets usually lives from 3 to 4 days. Okay, blood platelets are only one type, but WBCs are of different types, in fact. Okay. Now, where are they broken down? Because after 120 days, just now you have seen, isn't it? After 120 days, okay, here, they are going to die. So after they die, after a few days they die, after a few days they die, okay, what is going to happen to these cells? They need to be broken down. So the breakdown is going to occur where? In case of RBC, it occurs in the liver and the spleen. WBCs, killed by the germs, and they are passed out with your fecal matter, that is your stool. And blood platelets, in fact, they are also destroyed in liver and spleen, right? Now, what are the basic functions of blood? Very quickly, let's look into the basic functions of blood in human body. First function. What is the first function? Transport of substances. So what are the substances do they actually transport? First, red blood cells, they transport oxygen. Next, plasma, they transport carbon dioxide, nutrients, urea, hormones, okay, and even heat. Distribution of the heat is also done by your blood. Beside this, a very important chemical substance called antibodies, which are proteins. They are also transported across your whole body by the plasma. Second function of blood, protection against diseases. First, phagocytes. These are WBCs who are capable of engulfing, eating bacteria or microbes that enters in your body. So by eating microbes, they are capable of protecting you against those microbes. So engulfs, phagocytes, they engulfs and digest the germs by a process which is called as phagocytosis. Second category of WBCs are lymphocyte that we can talk about. They are capable of producing antibodies, and these antibodies, just now you have seen, they travel or they basically are transported through your plasma. Now, these antibodies are used to kill the germs or neutralize the toxins. Next protective function is by the blood platelets. You remember, these are cells and fragments of cells. These are responsible for helping in the process of blood clotting. Thereby, they prevent further blood loss and even they prevent entry of germs through the wounds because they block or plug that particular broken area. Now, let's move on to something very interesting. That is called blood groups. Now, do you know all bloods are red in color? Isn't it? We human beings are all the same. If you look into the color of the blood, all of us, if you start bleeding, you produce a red color of blood. But are all the bloods which are red in color same biologically? The answer is no. Who gave us this answer? Carl Landsteiner in the year 1900 gave us this answer. Who gave us? Carl Landsteiner. He said blood can be grouped into how many categories? 4 groups. How many? 4 groups. Now, how did he say that? On the basis of something called surface antigen. Once again, I'm telling you, surface antigen. Where are they present? On the surface of RBC. Once again, how do you differentiate the different types of blood? On the basis of surface antigen. And where are these surface antigens present? Can you tell me where are the surface antigens present? Sorry. Where are the surface antigens present? The surface antigens are actually present on the surface of RBC. Okay. Now, these surface antigens, okay, these surface antigens are of different types. Let's see. If a person is having antigen A on his RBC, he is said to have a blood group A. A person having what? Antigen B on RBC is said to be of blood group B. Now, a person can have both of them. Okay, A as well as B on the surface of antigen. So, in that case, his blood group becomes AB. And there are persons even who doesn't have any antigen. And accordingly, this type of blood containing RBCs would be called as what? Blood group O. Easy. So once again, how many groups are there? 4 groups. Who said? Carl Landsteiner. How did he differentiate that? On the basis of surface antigen. Where are those surface antigens found? On the surface of RBC, right? Now, if a person is having antigen A, his blood becomes A, blood group A. A person having antigen B, his blood group becomes B. Having both A and B, his blood group becomes AB. Having no antigen, you become O. Clear? Now, let's know more about it. Why are we studying about this blood group? See, there are many situations where a person might need blood. Say there is a surgery, then there might be requirement of blood. There could be an instance of accident where there is excessive blood loss. Then also there could be requirement of blood. A person who is suffering from, say, anemia can also require blood. So there are various conditions under which a person might require blood. Now, you cannot give blood of any random person to the person who needs it. Okay, and for that specifically, you have to know the blood groups. The blood that you are giving, that blood group should be known to you. And even the person who is receiving the blood, his blood group also should be known to you. Clear? So let's know about what is this process called as. We call it as blood transfusion. Say there is a particular person lying and he requires blood in a hospital. Now the doctors, they started consulting among themselves. The patient has lost a lot of blood, right? Now the second doctor said he needs blood transfusion. So what is blood transfusion? Let's see. Blood transfusion is basically a particular process in which you get blood from someone, okay, and then transfer this blood or infuse this blood, or more correctly, perfuse that blood into the blood vessel of the second person. So there are two persons. One person who is donating the blood, second person who is receiving the blood. So in your picture over here, you can see this person is donating the blood, isn't it? Now, as he is donating the blood, so what should we call him? Blood donor. And the donated blood is basically kept in a bag, a special bag which stores the blood, which is always kept in blood bank, right, in a particular temperature for storage purpose. Now, these blood which has been donated by that particular person will be transferred into this particular person. And what name should you give to this person? Recipient. So there are two persons. One person who donates the blood, that is the donor. Second person who receives the blood, that is the recipient. I believe it is clear. Now let's understand and let's define blood transfusion. The person who receives the blood is called as recipient. He can only receive blood from particular. The person who receives the blood is called recipient. He can only receive blood from particular blood group only, or blood groups only. Okay, not from everyone, specific. The person who donates blood is called as donor, right? Now here you can see a particular rule that we need to know for blood transfusion. Okay, for blood transfusion, in between the donor and recipient, we need to know about this rule. Now, some important facts that you need to know before that. See, someone whose blood group is A, he has an antigen called A, I told you. Now, this person is going to produce antibody. What is that? To fight foreign substances, okay, anything which is not of your body, we try to prevent that particular thing by producing a particular protein. Remember, I told you who produces this antibody? Lymphocyte, isn't it? So he is going to produce what? Antibody. Which antibody? Is it A? No, antibody B. So a person whose blood group is A, he has a surface antigen or an antigen A. He produces antibody B. Now he can donate blood to whom? He can donate blood to A. He can donate blood to someone who is AB. Now he can receive blood from whom? If this person requires blood, he can receive blood from whom? A and O. Right? Only A and O can give blood to him. Let's talk about B. If you talk about B, what you are going to find is he is having an antigen, which is B. He produces an antibody that is against A, not against B. Now, he can donate blood to B as well as AB, but can receive blood only from B and O, just like this. Easy. A can receive blood from A can receive blood from O. Here, one thing common that you can see, both A and B can receive blood from O. Let's come to the next one. AB. He must be having antigen, both A and B. So as he is having both the antigen, no antibodies are produced here. Nil. He can donate blood to whom? He can unfortunately donate blood only to someone whose blood group is AB. And interestingly, this person can take blood from everyone. All the blood groups can give blood to him. And that is why this blood group is commonly referred to as universal recipient. Please remember, AB blood group is also called as universal recipient. Moving on to the next one, blood group O. He doesn't have any antigen, isn't it? Does he have any antigen? No, he doesn't have any antigen. He produces how many types of antibodies? Both. He will produce antibody against A as well as antibody against B, right? Now, he can donate blood to whom? He can donate blood to all. There is no problem. That means he is an universal donor. But unfortunately, he can only receive blood from whom? Blood group O. Clear? Understood? Now, what can be the problem if there is a mismatch? Mismatched blood groups during blood transfusion can result into agglutination or clumping of RBC, okay, thereby blocking minute blood vessels. Yeah, so what could be the problem? The problem is this, that if someone, say for example, his blood group is A and he requires blood, okay, so by mistake what you have done, you have given him blood group B. Now, if you look into this gentleman, he has already produced antibody B against, okay, this antigen. So it is already present. As a result, what is going to happen is the antibodies are going to bind with this, okay, and the RBCs will become clumped. And this clumping of RBC is what we call as agglutination. So agglutination of RBC is going to occur, and due to this agglutination or clumping, the minute blood vessels, that is the capillaries, they will basically become blocked. And if the blockage occurs, you understand what is going to happen, right? Supply of the most important nutrients, removal of the waste, and all those gaseous exchange, which are principal functions of your circulatory system, that is your blood, will not occur, right? So blood transfusion should be done by strictly maintaining this compatibility rule. Moving on to another important thing related to blood transfusion, that is called as RH factor. What is that? That gives your blood positive or negative. You might have heard, my blood group is O positive, my brother's blood group is A positive. So in this way you might have heard, and every one of you have this as your specific identity, isn't it? Even in your school ID or in fact in your identity card, you must be having this, right? So what is this plus and what is this minus? Let's understand. It is nothing but a specific protein, and this protein is in fact present on the surface of RBC, right? Again, there was a surface antigen. Now this is a protein, and this protein, okay, which is present on the surface of RBC, was first discovered in a group of African monkey called as rhesus monkey. And from there only we have taken the term RH, right? So RH monkeys, in fact, yeah, discovered in RH or rhesus monkey. This RH factor was basically discovered here and named accordingly. Before transfusion of the blood, RH compatibility needs to be checked. Just like your blood group needs to be checked, your positive negative also needs to be checked. Like you can not give randomly. So have a look into how many blood groups now we have. Previously we were having how many? 4. Right now, if you look into this, how many do we have? Yes, how many do we have? 8, exactly. So we have actually 8 blood groups: A positive, B positive, AB positive, O positive, and on this side A negative, B negative, AB negative, and O negative. Please remember a very simple rule which can be added to our previous rule. What was the previous rule that we have seen just now? To this rule we can add this simple rule. What is that? Positives can receive blood from negatives, and negatives can only donate blood. So negatives can donate blood to negative, negatives can donate blood to positive, but positives, they can, okay, they can never give blood to negative. Please remember this. This is the very important rule by which this is basically done. So what are the main things that we have learned today? We have learned the importance of the transport system in human body. We have learned about the different types of circulation, or in fact circulatory system, present in human body. And we have also learned about blood circulatory system, specifically discussing about blood. So what are we left with? Blood vessels. We are left with the heart to be discussed in blood circulatory system before we start with the lymphatic system, right? So in our next class, we will discuss about the blood vessels and our heart. So till then, thank you everyone, and please stay safe, stay healthy. Bye bye.